And we're live.
We're
Last
live.
time in 2025.
Yeah. So welcome everybody. Capt Ron here with Dieter Staudinger, my able first officer, all around technical guy, and who keeps me honest. And if you only knew half the truth. So anyway, we're glad you joined us tonight, and we're really glad you're here because this is the last show of the year there. And if you're watching this show, there's a good chance that something you saw or read recently stirred up some anxiety, maybe a headline. We're gonna do an update on a story that we had a month ago or so, that accident in Louisville. And tonight's conversation in general, I got another thing we're going to talk about too, but it's not about ignoring the news or pretending scary stories don't exist. It's about learning how to understand them without letting fear take over from you. And so we'll slow things down for you a little bit. We'll separate rare events from everyday safety and try to bring things back into perspective, because after all, that is what the purpose of this weekly show is to give you a place to just kind of ground yourself when you need some grounding there. So, and flying today is safer than it's ever been, safest way to travel on the planet, and your anxiety doesn't get to decide what's true. Okay, it's facts that make that. So take a breath, get comfortable, and let's walk through here. Let me share my screen here, and Dieter will be watching for comments on Facebook if you got questions or anything like that. And of course, I always welcome him to join me, and whenever he's got things to add there. Of course, we this is the Fearless Flight weekly live show. And first thing we do is we invite you, if you haven't join our Birds of a Feather group invitation. And you can see the link up there on the screen. It's whether you're starting to work on just starting to work on your fear flying, or you've already taken steps and you want to stay supported. This is the place for you. It's safe, it's private, and it's filled with people who get it and get you. So like I said, if you haven't joined, please consider doing that. Tonight, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about that cargo accident, UPS down in Louisville, that happened, I can't remember, but a couple months ago, I think. And I had Marcia Spivak. I want to give Marcia credit. She turned me on to an article. And this is an incident that happened years and years and years ago. And she has claustrophobia, so she thinks, holy cow, if there's toxic fumes in the cabin and I can't get out of there, that triggers her anxiety. So I just got a quick mention of some of the things that I found in that. We're gonna talk about our flap survey. We got together with our beta group on Saturday, Dieter and I. We got some really great feedback. We're gonna turn it loose tonight. We're gonna give you a link. Even if you are well along your way, we'd love to have you take the survey, and we'd love to have you let us know what your reaction to it was. Okay, we think this is
definitely, Ron. Let me just jump in like that,
yeah.
Because I don't think we really have that so clear yet. But if you are someone who's been following us for a while, it's not as clear yet in the follow-up emails. We want you to just hit reply and let us know how you thought you did on that survey, what stood out for you. And of course, we're always encouraging you to get yourself a 15-minute coaching call with Capt Ron and see how together you guys can go even deeper on it. So
the feedback that we got from our beta testers was this, and many of them are well on their way from they weren't newbies, and they said it really resonated for them at this page, and it was a real what do I say? It was a snapshot into where they're at right now. They weren't concerned. They weren't sure whether they were supposed to answer it as if they were not feeling better about it, and they found that it was validating to measure this, use this as a yardstick for how far they've come. So I think it's going to be a really great tool. We have spent lots of time on this, and it's going to be our premier attraction on the website when we relaunch it here shortly. So Okay, and then we got a class coming up this weekend. If you're going to be in the Phoenix area, or you're going to be anywhere near a computer, if it's the Phoenix area on Saturday night, or for my live class there, or near a computer on Sunday morning, because I do my monthly online version of the Clear for Takeoff 101 class. So lots of things, and hope you can come and join us. So let me start the same way. If you were sitting with me one on one, you may have seen the headlines about this UPS cargo plane that crashed in Louisville, and felt your stomach drop. It doesn't stay in the news as much because it wasn't a passenger airplane. But nonetheless, it had fatalities. The 3 crew members on the UPS airplane, and the 11 people on the ground. And any reaction you might have to news events like this is completely understandable, because when your anxiety hears words like engine failure or mental fatigue, it doesn't pause and ask you what kind of airplane that was or who's on board. It just said, "Hey, let's head for the bunker." So tonight I want to slow this down a little bit and put the story where it belongs. First of all, it wasn't a passenger flight. There were no seats, no families on board. They had 2 pilots that were going to Hawaii out of Louisville, and so they had a third pilot on board, and no vacation travelers, nobody on there like you would on a passenger airplane. And the aircraft is another thing to pay note to. It was an MD-11, which was a follow-up to the the DC-10. The MD-11 is no longer used in service in any capacity anywhere in the world except for cargo. And UPS and FedEx are the biggest flyers of this airplane. You'll never see them show up at your gate, and because they're not part of any modern passenger fleet. And the preliminary report shows that they found fatigue cracks in the structure that holds the engine to the wing. They got these big pylons on there, and one of them separated. And there was a lot in the news because back in 1979, I think it was, there was a DC-10 American Airlines type that took off and had a similar separation of the engine. So your mind might go back there and connect the 2 events and say, "Oh my God, I thought things were getting better." Well, they are. But this was a similar incident, but these airplanes are nowhere in service now. And the report doesn't say, the preliminary report from the NTSB doesn't say that engines randomly fall off airplanes, and it doesn't say that passenger jets are unsafe. And most of all, it doesn't say that maintenance was ignored. This is a preliminary report. So no final cause yet, and no conclusions to jump to. But the thing about aviation accidents is we don't speculate. It investigates these carefully and methodically, and we will get down to the bottom of this. And there will be relevance in the sense that if they find something that might be relative to other airplanes that are in the inventory in commercial service, you can bet that they'll be affected by that as well. The airplanes you fly on, of course, are very different. They're newer. They're inspected a little bit differently than cargo airplanes. They're retired earlier. Oftentimes, as these airplanes, the MD-11, they came from passenger service, many of them, and they got put into cargo service. And they don't use the same type of engine mount on there. That's probably a big thing to note. Cargo planes fly harder schedules. Those suckers are in the air many, many, many times, and they carry heavier loads, and they stay in service longer. The event doesn't increase your personal risk, not even a little bit. So you just don't have to worry about that. And this is the most important slide. This is what happens when something like this happens. As soon as a structural concern was identified on this crash airplane, the FAA grounded every MD-11 in the entire world, at least the ones they had jurisdiction over. UPS and FedEx, like I mentioned, they're the primary users, and they complied immediately. And Boeing supported the decision. MD stood for McDonnell Douglas because these airplanes were built when McDonnell Douglas was out there competing against Airbus and Boeing. Boeing bought McDonnell Douglas in, I think, 1999, somewhere back there. And so now Boeing Aircraft owns the airplane, even though they weren't the original manufacturer. So the thing to remember is that aviation safety is working exactly as it's supposed to. And whereas when there's uncertainty, they stop flying the airplanes. They don't wait for another accident to happen. And like I said, even though there weren't any passengers on there, it is tragic because of the people that did lose their lives as a result of that. So, what do you want to take away from this? And I called it a grounded takeaway because our goal isn't to ignore scary headlines. We're not telling you to ignore anything. The goal is to understand them without letting them hijack your nervous system, because that's what your nervous system is wired to do. You all know flying today is safer than it has ever been. And when something rare happens or something rare breaks, the system shuts everything down that's relevant and it gets it fixed before it goes forward. And that's exactly what happened here. The grounded what we need to remember is rare failures make headlines and not everyday safety. And flying is safer than it's ever been, and understanding the headlines without letting fear take control of you is what you really want to do. So try to remember that. Go back to this if the replay, whenever you get ready to fly and you've seen something in the news, because the theme of tonight's show with regarding this particular accident is the message that you want to take with you when you fly. Okay. All right. Moving along, something a little more fun. You know what? Let me pause for just a minute on that. What I wanted to do, I mentioned, made reference to this article that Marcia Spivak turned me on to. There was an article from years ago about I forget what kind of airplane it was. I think it was a Boeing A320 or an Airbus A320, and they had an incident where they had toxic fumes in there, and that happens from time to time, or at least complaints about that happen. When I say from time to time, it's not like it happens every week, every month, even every year, but it'll happen from time to time. It usually is related to seals on the engine. You know, like without getting into an area that I don't know much about, that's the auto mechanics. On your oil pan in your car, there's gaskets around there, and the oil, of course, gets hot and it can bleed over. Well, that same type of fix, it happens on, or construction happens on an airplane around the engines, and sometimes those seals will leak, and it'll superheat the oil and put it into the flow, and it gets bled off and ends up coming into the air conditioning system, and whenever that happens, usually it's inconsequential, other than you can smell it, and we don't take the airplanes, and they ground them until they can get that fixed. But this was an article that Marcia thought, and because it was in the headlines, even though it happened many years ago, there was some people that claimed that they had some physiological issues with that, and everything from cancer in higher percentages than the general population, and even one pilot who allegedly came down with ALS. Even though he had a relative in his family that had ALS, he was suspect of this. And it's one of those things that happens in life sometime when there is no answer. And, and as fearful flyers, our tolerance for ambiguity is really, really, really slight. And it gets shrunk by things like airplane crashes and the areas in the news there. And I wanted to just go through a couple of things that I responded to Marcia with, is why this article caught attention. It's because it discusses toxic fumes, something that you would have no control over as a passenger. And what the article is actually about, when you read through it, it focuses on how rare these events are. It talks about the oil or hydraulic vapors, how they get into the system, and it's an occupational health discussion, not a passenger safety issue. Although it's hard to assume that. What the article doesn't say, it doesn't say flying's unsafe. It doesn't say that passengers are being harmed. It doesn't say that airplanes are routinely exposing people to toxic fumes, and it does not recommend passengers stop flying. It's like everything else. You pay your money and you take your chances. I don't mean to be flippant saying that, but life is about risk, and our the part of our brain that is charged with keeping us alert, aware, and out of harm's way sometimes gets it wrong. And so the biggest thing I can say is stay connected to us. And if you got questions, keep them coming. So why in that line, why anxiety latches onto stories like this is because anxiety says, could this happen to me? You've heard me say your odds of dying in an airplane crash in North America right now are 1 in 100 million. That's from Arnold Burnett up at MIT. And what your brain hears if you got anxiety triggered by flying, it hears, you didn't say 0 in a million or 100 million, Ron. You said 1 in 100 million. So we do possibilities, but we don't do probabilities very well. And once the brain says could, the body reacts as if danger is present. So I just wanted to throw that out and thank Marcia again for highlighting that. So the theme tonight is about the media and the impact of reading stories. And remember, it's not, you don't want to let your anxiety determine whether or not flying is safe, because it'll miss the boat every time. Okay, enough said about that. Any questions or anybody coming in there?
Just Marcia saying thank you and appreciating the fact that that you are following up with it and discussing the articles. So, and that's really what this show is about. You bring us your questions, your concerns, and we do our best to hopefully intelligently follow up and bring it in a wider context that isn't just the article, but everything surrounding it.
And thanks again to Marcia for pointing that out. I love all of you out there who have questions and send it to me. I gave her a personal response and told her to watch the show tonight, but it's not that big a deal for me to answer questions for you. The worst thing that Dieter and I fear is that you will have questions and you won't raise them. You won't ask us. So stay on those questions here. Okay, so let's talk about this new flap survey that's going to be, you're going to hear a lot more of that with the Fearless Flight. It's our new instrument, scientifically developed, and with the help of our friend at AI, and it's turning out to be more than we ever anticipated. And I like to think after decades of coaching fearful flyers out there, one thing became clear, and that is that flight anxiety is not a single problem with a single cause. It affects different people differently. It's a collection of different fears, sensations, beliefs, and survival strategies that show up uniquely in each one of you out there. And traditional fear of flying programs, including ours, they treated these things differently, as if differences don't matter. And they early in my early days here, we offered general reassurance, breathing exercises, and statistical arguments about why our flying is so safe, but none of them really address the root of each person's fear. And that's what FLAP does. And that's the name that we have come up with. And Dieter was instrumental in finding an aviation term, and it stands for Flight Anxiety Profile. And we call it a survey because it does survey your attitude about 40 different statements out there. And what this instrument does is it brings a structure to the problem by mapping out the emotional. How does it affect you emotionally? Cognitive, how does it affect the way you think? And physiological dimensions of fear. And it helps to bring clarity by helping you see the specific anxiety patterns that are reflected back to you, often for many of you for the first time. And it gives you a context, a lens for looking at what you may not have had words to describe what was going on with you. And most importantly, I think it brings compassion by showing you that you're not broken or irrational. Your body and your brain are responding in predictable, understandable ways based on how your brain and body learn to protect themselves. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It's just doing it without regard for the truth and facts sometimes. And so flap, this instrument exists because understanding your personal fear pattern is the key to changing it. And once you can see what your anxiety is really made of, you finally know where to begin. And that's, I think, the real thing. And Dieter and I this thing is an amazing report, and it gives you real information that you can use. I just developed one of the things that you can use without doing anything else. It gives you some things that you can start doing to help move yourself down the road of this thing called flight anxiety. Uh, as I alluded to before, it measures your emotional reactions, thought patterns, physical sensations, control, safety, and uncertainty triggers. It takes everything that we have found, literally in thousands of personal interviews that I've done over the past 38 years, and it helps to quantify them and give you an idea of what is going on in your brain. Dieter came up with these 8 flap types, and the anticipatory warrior, control commander, backseat pilot, safety skeptic, crash catastrophizer, turbulence translator, somatic storyteller, and escape strategist. And you'll get one primary and at least one secondary, and sometimes they'll get a third one, right, Dieter?
It's possible, but really you have one primary and 2 secondary types but actually what you are the image where it says your flight anxiety orientation map, aside from just these 8 types, we're also, our goal was really to give you, like you see there, a map, right?
Yeah.
And the most important thing is that you actually locate yourself anywhere on that map, wherever you are, and then you have a path. And the goal obviously is to understand and also manage, but then also to empower yourself to overcome your anxiety, your fear. And so there, there are more dimensions to this profile survey than just the 8 types, but those are really helpful that we have heard from the beta group, and people really resonated a lot with their primary type in every case, actually. So yeah.
And as in any case of where you're trying to navigate from point A to point B, you got to know where you're at. And that's what flap does. It tells you where you are on this spectrum that we'll call flight anxiety. And it even has a chart. We'll touch on it here, but it'll be more obvious to you when you take the survey. And we'll just go through a couple of these. So what's the anticipatory warrior? It's the weather forecaster. That's a person scanning the horizon with binoculars, forecasting storms that may never come. Why it fits? This type of fear anxiously anticipates danger long before the flight begins. How many of you out there know that the most troublesome thing to you is anticipatory anxiety? This finally puts some definition to it and helps people. Next thing, control. This is another one of the dimensions. And the control commander is the captain without a cockpit. And it's the metaphor for that would be someone gripping an imaginary steering wheel, even as a passenger. And why it fits, they want to be in control, even when it's not possible. And this we all have, as human beings, the need for control. But when it comes to anxiety, some of us need even more than that. And we won't go through the other 8 just in the interest of time for that, but we wanted to get down in a little bit more behind the scenes here. So it starts with 41 statements, and you get to rate those 0 to 10. So we didn't want it to be yes or no, because that wouldn't be near as relevant to you. So you can see not all the statements are going to be attributable to you, or nor will you resonate with them. But you'll get you'll score on these, and within 10 minutes you'll have a report. What, 10 pages, 13 pages, something like that,
Yeah,
Dieter?
I think it's about 12 to 13 pages. Yeah, because they're personalized. So, depending how you answer or how you rate yourself, like Ron said, from one not at all like me to 10 that's totally me. So depending on how you rate yourself, the report is actually being put together after you are done with the service. So it's not a fixed document. And that was one of the most important things to us, that
Yeah.
it actually serves you rather than, it's a cookie cutter kind of whatever these Cosmo kind of, personality quizzes are in 5 questions. It's a lot more. You are a lot more complex, you're a lot more unique, and so we wanted to give you a lot more unique information depending on your needs. So
And if you're alive, if you got a pulse, you've heard about AI. AI made this possible for us.
mhm,
Dieter got
yeah,
into the weeds on this, and it's truly phenomenal what we were able to do.
I mean,
We
it's
don't know
taken us
ourselves.
months to do this. It
Yeah,
would have
yeah.
taken years before
Oh yeah,
to
yeah,
get to the
and a team
depth.
of
Yeah,
many people to
yeah,
do this.
yeah.
So we're really proud of this. I'm really proud of what Dieter has helped me put together there, and we're just really proud of the whole thing there.
Mhm,
Just a few words about this. Dieter talked about the flap report, and there's this thing in there called the radar chart. And
mhm,
it's a little bit hard to do this, but if you can imagine, these are the 8 dimensions around the circle here. And in some areas, you're going to map further out, and it's going to be more relevant to you, and others less. You can see this, it's
mhm,
kind of a little bit larger area shaded green there. So that shows you where you are. We all have some dimensions of all of these dimensions, I guess is the word I want to use,
yeah,
but these characteristics. But we do have a tendency to be dominant
mhm,
in some areas, and that's what the radar report shows.
mhm.
And so what we want you to do, what we hope you to do, Dieter's gonna put a link in there tonight, and
I
we
already,
would like
yeah, link is
it's already
already
there.
in
Okay.
in the comments, so all
Yeah.
you have to do is get over there, and it takes about, from the feedback that we've heard, it takes no more than 5 minutes to for you to
Yeah.
do it, and then as soon as you hit the submit, it takes 10 minutes behind the scenes, and then you get an email with that report. So
And the four things primarily that are involved here, it first thing is to increase your awareness. You can't change unless you have awareness. You got to find out some of the things that you didn't know that you didn't know, and that's what Flap will do for you. And then it's going to help you understand on a much deeper level, what are the things that trigger you? Because once you know what the triggers are, that can help steer you on your journey as to what you need to learn next. And then it's going to have tools. It's going to recommend specific tools for each of the different types. And it also, what we found out from the thing beta testing, kind of an unknown blessing, is that you'll be able to use it as a progress check. You can take it down the
sure,
road
yeah.
and see how you're doing. And so, like I said, we're really excited about that, and I think it's going to be a real great addition to Fearless Flight.
Hmm.
So we're recommended that you take the flap survey and next, and take a look at your personalized report, and use the tools, and keep
Hmm.
coming back to Fearless Flight Live. And Dieter will have a link in there also that you'll see. If you haven't ever done a free 15-minute coaching session, we really encourage you to do that. So I'm getting worn out for the year. So
Well, it's
we do,
been
this
quite
is
the
the last
year.
show. Yeah. I do want to thank all of you for tuning in and giving somewhere for our words and our passion to fall. I want to take a special note to thank Dieter. We met 8 years ago now. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
2017, March. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
pretty sure February, March 2017.
And it ain't
That's
been easy. We won't go into the details, but it really isn't. And Dieter he's added a dimension for me that I simply would never have gotten to this level without him. So, from the bottom of my heart, I really, really am grateful, Dieter.
mm,
Thanks to you and Rebecca for putting up with the other side of me on the other end there. So anyway, so I want to just say thanks again for everybody out there for showing up all these times. We hope it makes a difference. We would love to hear from you, and we'll see you again next year.
yeah.
So come back next Tuesday. So Happy
Happy
New
New
Year,
Year's,
everybody.
and I hope that especially if you are new to us, that 2026 will really be the year that you gain the courage, the tools, the understanding, and hopefully with us also the support that helps you in your goal to fly, if not immediately fearlessly, but fly empowered with the tools and everything that you need so that you can be in control of your destiny. So that's my
We
wish
feel that
for all of
with
you.
Flap, it's never been more possible to make your next flight a better one. Okay.
Yeah.
So thanks, everybody. Thanks,
All
Dieter.
right.
And I hope you